Hey, what's up YouTube? This is Lucifer Lake of Warden coming back at you with another video. And just give me a minute here. Gotta adjust my cameras. So, jumping back into the world of Satanism, just the other day I got an email alert from the Satanic Temple, who I am not affiliated with in any means whatsoever. I am not a member, I do not represent them, or anything. But I gotta give them a shout out and congratulations to Lucian Greaves and the other founders of the Satanic Temple for finally achieving tax exemption. But in doing so, for a number of years I've been wondering something, and just the other day I shot out a Twitter message to Lucian Greaves, and I had to ask him a question. And I asked him if he had ever heard of a book called the Satanic Testament. Now, I didn't tell him who I was. I didn't tell him I was the author of the book or anything. I kept it very ambiguous. And I did so on purpose because I wanted to see what his reaction was to it. Now, if you go and you take a look at my book, you will find a chapter on page 66. And you can actually Google this chapter and you will find my book. It's in the Google database. And the chapter, and if you go into Google, and I'll show you this in a second, I got my computer up with it up, already typed in and showing. If you go into Google and you type in the words, in this phrase very specifically, 4-point trapezoidal revisionism, it will bring up, I'll show you this here in just a second, right into search list. The first thing that comes up is my book in the Google Documents thing. The books save, whatever it says, the Satanic Testament, page 66, Google Books result. And it gives my name, Lucifer Lake of Warden, and the year that it was published in. Now, Satanic Temple was founded in 2013. My book, The Satanic Testament, was published in 2011. However, I wrote it all the way back in 2009. 2008, it was 2009 I actually wrote it in. I had to think about it. And it took me a while before I went ahead and I got it published. But it was finally published in 2011 via Lulu.com, and I have the ISBN, I own the copyrights and everything. And it is sold internationally since then. My sales haven't been the greatest, but I do make consistent sales, especially around Halloween time. Now, this chapter is 4-point trapezoidal revisionism, found on page 66 of the book, and so I'm going to go ahead and show it to you really quickly. As we all know, I'm not the greatest at this. So we can see right here, I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, you can. It's what you're looking for. And then let me scroll up here. You see all this stuff. So you see the 4-point trapezoidal revisionism. And then you scroll down, first thing, the Satanic Testament, page 66, Google book. Alright. And this is the chapter that I wrote on it. And you click on it, and it brings up my book. There you go, you can see that. It brings up my book and the chapter that I wrote on it. So, we're going to go diving into this for just a few minutes. And you can look this up yourselves. My book is also available on Amazon.com and Lulu.com. Go check it out. Go pick it up, and you can read this for yourself from my book directly. So, what is 4-point trapezoidal revisionism? Well, way back when, this was during the time frame that I was trying to initially start up my first satanic group called Dark Church Satan. The name was just a holdover. I never intended it to be a permanent name or anything. It was just a placeholder name. And I called it Dark Church Satan just because I didn't know what else to call it. I wasn't trying to be creepy or anything. The name Dark in it was just basically we're not above board yet. Yeah, so we're sort of still in the dark on things. That was all that the name meant. But during that time frame, I was trying to write a book, which inevitably became the Satanic Testament, that would work as a religious text for my group. And one of the things that I wanted to touch base on in the book was LaVey's pentagonal revisionism. And that was his 5-point pentagonal revisionism, which, hell, I don't even know. I know I have it in some of my books somewhere. I'm not going to bother digging it up right now. But it didn't really flow to me. And so I decided, something needs to be done here. A revisionism needs to be written that was going to work with pentagonal revisionism, but be its own thing and be able to move a religious organization from being just a grassroots movement to within years being completely, totally autonomous, and whatnot. And it turned out to be trapezoidal revisionism. Okay, so I'm bringing up Church Satan's website right here just to explain really briefly what pentagonal revisionism is. And so they got it really quickly here. This was something that was developed by Anton LaVey, and my trapezoidal revisionism was designed around this to sort of bolster it and boost it. And so what it is anybody who's not familiar with this, because it is sort of obscure nowadays, the first point is stratification. The point on which all others ultimately rest. There can be no more myth of equality for all. It only translates to mediocrity. And supports the weak at the expense of the strong. Water must be allowed to seek its own level without interference from apologists for incompetence. No one should be protected from the effects of his own stupidity. Strict taxation of all churches. That's point number 2. If churches were taxed for all their income and property, they'd crumble overnight of their own obsolescence, and the national debt would be wiped out as quickly. The productive, the creative, and the resourceful should be subsidized. So long as the useless and incompetent are getting paid, they should be heavily taxed. Now, I actually touch on this exact point in pentagonal revisionism because the Church of Satan has never been taxed. The Church of Satan has never been taxed exempt. I have to correct myself here. They have always paid their taxes voluntarily. Even though they could be tax exempt if they wanted to be, but they don't. They never have wanted to be. Now, in mine, pentagonal revisionism goes for strict taxation, where trapezoidal revisionism goes for tax exemption. Now, there is a difference here. My revisionism is designed to get an organized religious group up and running and super steady. Now, this is 2019, and the Satanic Temple was founded in 2013. So, in less than, 6 years? Something like that? 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 7 years. In about 7 years' time, they have gone from a grassroots movement to a full-blown religion and finally achieved tax exemption. My rules event inevitably with the tax exemption once they are fully stable and established, which I would have to argue at this point they're pretty well established. The tax exemption should go away and they should go for paying their taxes. And that's how I believe that I wrote it those years ago. But, it's only there to help bolster and bring a person or bring a group up to a certain level. Then they should be able to walk on their own 2 feet. Number 3 is no tolerance for religious beliefs secularized and incorporated into law and order issues to re-establish lex talionis would require, oh my god, this is like a run-on sentence, and law and order issues. To re-establish lex talionis would require a complete overturning of the present injustice system based on the Judeo-Christian ideals. Seriously, whoever copy and pasted this needs to work on punctuation. Where the victim/defender has been made the criminal. Amnesty should be considered for anyone in prison because of his alleged influence, quote unquote, upon the actual perpetrator of the crime. Everyone is influenced in what he or she does. Scapegoating has become a way of life, a means of survival for the unfit, as an extension of the Judeo-Christian cop-out of blaming the devil for everything. Criminals can gain leniency, even praise, by placing the blame on a convenient villain. Following the satanic creed of responsibility to the responsible, in a satanic society, everyone must experience the consequences of his own actions, for good or ill. Number 4 is development and production of artificial human companions. This is LeVay. He was a little weird. We all know this, but he was cool. The forbidden industry as an economic godsend in which will allow everyone power, quote unquote, over someone else. Polite, sophisticated, technologically feasible slavery, and the most profitable industry since TV and the computer. Yeah. Basically what he's talking about is robots. Robots. Real Doll? Yeah. They're working on pretty much exactly this thing. Number 5, the fifth and final point. The opportunity for anyone to live within a total environment of his or her choice, with mandatory adherence to the aesthetic and behavioral standards of the same privately owned, operated, and controlled environments as an alternative to homogenized and polyglot ones. The freedom to insularize oneself within a social milieu of personal well-being, an opportunity to feel, see, and hear that which is most aesthetically pleasing without interference from those who would pollute or detract from that option. What that basically means is your house is your castle, your own private little world, whatnot. And that is Pentagonal revisionism in its entirety. So, trapezoidal revisionism, now as you can see, Pentagonal revisionism, while it sounds good, isn't always going to be able to stand on its own. And so I was like, how do I work this? How do I work this? And so I created trapezoidal revisionism. Now, I created some pretty big, long explanations here. So what I am going to do is I'm just going to pare it down to, the initial paragraphs of each. One, just to keep it as short and simple as possible. The first side of my trapezoidal revisionism is tax exemption. I said, it is no secret that LaVey's church has never sought the use of tax exemption throughout the entire 40-some-odd years it has been around. Mind you, 40 at this point in time. It is now well over 50 years old. This is one of the singularly most wonderful things about the Church of Satan, that other such organizations who have done this, and other such organizations who have done the same thing. It shows that they are willingly returning back to and aiding their community in one of the most fundamental ways, and are setting an example for all church groups and organizations to do the same. Over the years, Church Satan has established a wealth of monies without ever asking for any special treatment from the federal government. They have set standards that all organizations and churches, whether they are satanic or other, should aspire to. Unfortunately, in our modern era, unlike LaVey's, when he first established his church, this is simply not a feasible option any longer. Most churches begin small and are almost always poor with little to no money. To the newly established church group, every penny is valued to help fund it. Such money goes towards events, gatherings, supplies, and groups, and finance, publications, and more. Okay, so I am jumping. This one actually does require a lot more. Unlike LaVey's time, finances are not easy to acquire, and one must be diligent and consider inflated prices, higher taxes, and tougher to find jobs. The field of self-employment holds many dangers itself, and one must face extreme competition from others who offer the same thing as you. One must beat them out in quality, quantity, and price. Federal grants are equally harder to come by and require many forms to be filled out and much research. To put it simply, the current condition of the financial market is a downright nightmare, and it's only getting worse. And it has gotten worse. This makes it nearly impossible for any new religious group to get started like the Church of Satan did, let alone continue to operate for an extended period of time, without becoming rapidly popular. And that is the difference. Satanic Temple became popular very quickly. 7 years. Boom, they've exploded to international standards. Which is, and I said, this makes it nearly impossible for any new religious group to get started like the Church of Satan did, let alone continue to operate for an extended period of time without becoming rapidly popular, which is almost unheard of, especially in Satanism. And yet Satanic Temple pulled that off. Therefore, they didn't need tax exemption, but they went for it. Other things that they did, and this is how they managed to pull it off. Satan takes center stage. The public press machine is one of the most important modes of mass communication in the world today. Currently, everything from CNN to our local newspapers dominates our lives. In the last 2 decades, a new form of media coverage has seen to it that literally everyone is inundated with news reports on a daily basis. Every person in the United States, even the world, can know what is going on in almost every other town and community in America, should it wish to by simply going online and looking up that region's local news. The Church of Satan has spent countless hours over 40 years spreading the word through media on what Satanism is about through public television and internet. But in a world full of Satanists, they stand all but alone in their efforts. One organization can only do so much to counter the bad press Satanism gets yearly. And that's where Satanic Temple changed the rules. They came out and they got into the limelight constantly, never letting up, never relenting. For years, Church Satan was doing the same thing, but once LaVey passed away, they backed off into the shadows. The next side, the devil's business. As almost any Satanist will tell you, it's a pain in the butt to find any satanic merchandise on a store's shelf, unless it's to defame Satanism. At present, one must go to some form of online shop that specializes in satanic merchandise, or find a rare occult shop that carries this stuff to get supplies. There is a cornerstone market in Satanism that, as a number of active Satanists continue to swell, so too can commerce for a satanic organization profit by establishing its own occult shops and other satanic businesses. This would consolidate their revenues in the time to come. Business that specializes in satanic merchandise can be widely varied, from simple stores to publishing houses, movie or music studios, art galleries, and a variety of other such business opportunities. Since writing this, I have seen a number of new online businesses come into play that has really boomed. You still need to go online to find satanic merchandise, but it's a lot easier now. Before, at this point in time, the options were super limited and you really, really had to hunt. One of the things is Satanic Temple does have its own online businesses as well. They have made a revenue of selling satanic merchandise, so they have managed to gain revenue. The final point is public Satanism. Satanism stands its ground as the adversary to most religions, but none other more than the Christian religion. There was a time when Christianity was put on the ropes by the occult community, with Wicca and Satanism at the forefront of the battlefield, leading the charge. Sadly, Christianity managed to come back swinging with the whole satanic panic incident that damn near caused a second Inquisition. Satanism is still reeling somewhat from this period of time, and its officials are currently working hard to dispel much of the myths. This slanderous rumor spread by Christian monger mills at one point that has benefited many religions is that they are so readily accessible by the public through some sort of public established offices. Satanic Temple has established a home base, a public HQ that anybody can just walk up to, go in, and talk to somebody who is able to explain things to them. That is one of the things that Satanic Temple has done. Satanic Temple has managed to take my 4-point trapezoidal revisionism that I created in 2011 and run with it. They are a proof that my revisionism works. Now, here's my question. Did they know that they were using my revisionism? Did they knowingly do this and use it for that purpose? If they did, good on them. But, let's hear about it. This is something that should be spoken about. It should be shared. Again, if you want to read my whole chapter on it, go buy my book. It's on Amazon.com. It's on Lulu.com. It's called The Satanic Testament by Lucifer Lake of Orden. And go pick it up. And on page 66, you will find this chapter detailing my revisionism. And if you look at it and you look at Satanic Temple from 2013, when it was established, to 2019, when it finally gained tax exemption, you can check off each of the marks of my revisionism that Satanic Temple has performed. I find it kind of interesting because in looking at this, they have done every single point on my revisionism to their benefit. Now, here's the next question. Can other groups do the same? This is Lucifer Leg of Orton, coming at you with another video. If you're liking what you're hearing, liking what you're seeing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. Don't forget to hit that bell icon, that way you know whenever I'm putting up another video. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Give me a thumbs down if you don't. Go away. And don't forget to leave me a comment down in the comments below telling me what you think of this whole thing. For now, this is Lucifer Leg of Orton. Thank you, and you all have a good night. I'm out of here.